Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where Disney continues to cast a large shadow over the entertainment industry. It's actually getting less and less funny. But on that note, there was a ray of hope that others might still be able to find success in Hollywood, albeit on a different, much smaller scale. But not for them personally. Just wait until you hear how much money Quentin Tarantino is making. I couldn't believe it. All right, so anyway, yes, I am talking about Quentin Tarantino, proving that at least for the controversial filmmaker, there is life after Weinstein. But hey, there's actually been life for everybody after Weinstein. But anyway, for the first time, working with another studio, this time Sony, and potentially also Paramount, because he keeps saying he's maybe going to make a Star Trek movie. Will that count as one of the 10 films he's going to make? We'll see. But anyway, Tarantino posted the biggest debut of his career. And will he only make 10 films if his career is only getting better, right? We'll see if he can talk his way out of that one. I think Tarantino pretty much has proven at this point he's going to do whatever the heck he wants to. And this box office, well, at least opening weekend does help him. We're breaking it down. But this was his most star-studded movie ever. And speaking of stars, this debut was razor close to Inglourious Basterds' opening and one of Pitt's own overall personal best, meaning a third Pitt collaboration is likely in the cards. DiCaprio, he has some bigger openings with other directors, so he's not as reliant on Tarantino, but this is still one of DiCaprio's better openings as well, and Margot Robbie's best after Suicide Squad, although Robbie has actually made surprisingly few movies, with many of them opening in limited release, so you can't really get a bead on how they obviously debuted. This is also Sony's, wait till you hear this, Sony's best non-Spider-Man related opening since Hotel Transylvania 3 last year. And if you want to go back even further and find a live action film, you'd still have to go to a franchise picture, and that would be 2016's failed Ghostbusters reboot, which shows that it doesn't take a lot to be a star at Sony. The bar is so low. But anyway, the point is, yes, Tarantino is a star himself. This certainly, I think, reminding Hollywood that he is a great director to be in business with, especially if you're on the ropes. He's able to deliver the best box office, inarguably, outside of franchise or horror fare. And it puts him in league with none other than Mr. Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan's probably like, what? You snooze, Christopher Nolan? Other directors catch up with you. Jordan Peele and M. Night Shyamalan are certainly named directors working today, but they work in horror. I'm talking, again, non-franchise, non-horror movies. Although one could argue that a big selling point for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was the gruesome Manson murders, and that the third act is certainly horrifying. So I guess the distinction I'm trying to make here is that Quentin Tarantino and Christopher Nolan aren't making high-concept movies. Even A Quiet Place is a high-concept movie. And to some degree, you can call it a gimmick movie. So Quentin Tarantino and Christopher Nolan are incredibly valuable in an industry where many who work in it don't even like gimmick movies, certainly don't respect them, and don't want to be forced to make them. In fact, fascinatingly, arguably the only remaining movie stars today have resisted comic book movies. That to me is really interesting. Although, with Pitt's ex, Angelina Jolie, joining the Eternals, that too might change. Always a trailblazer, Jolie, even if sometimes it's a bit cringe. Now, Quentin Tarantino's management team is earning their own cut of his salary because they're making sure that he gets paid. Deadline revealed this weekend that between Inglourious Basterds and The Hateful Eight, the latter, one of Tarantino's least successful films, he still personally pocketed a cool $75 million. That's like Robert Downey Jr. money. And when it comes to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 30% of the gross, in other words, what the movie makes up front before any expenses are subtracted, that's net. But 30% of the gross is divided up between Tarantino, DiCaprio, and Pitt. As you can see, women are still not competitive in these types of deals, despite how much Margot Robbie was used to promote this film. I'm not a huge fan of Robbie's recent business choices, but I have to say she's inarguably a marquee name, and I think she brought in a lot of people. She was used heavily to promote the film. And she needs to get paid while she still can. Maybe she's crazy like a fox. We'll see how this movie does. I think it's not great she's embroiled in this controversy over how women are treated in the film. And we'll see what happens with Birds of Prey, which Warner Brothers doesn't know what to do with, it seems. Some people say in the test screenings they love it. Some people don't. The executives don't like it. And once again, Warner Brothers can't make a decisive decision. I think because they're worried about the ramifications, which is understandable. But I think, again, it's because nobody who works there actually likes these movies. All right, so anyway, because of the financial structure, with that 30% just out the door as soon as it comes in, it's being said that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood needs to get to 400 million worldwide just to break even. Obviously, Sony is hoping for, you just opened with 40 million. You're like, you need 10 times that. Now, obviously, Sony is hoping for long legs at the box office, which Tarantino movies have classically had, as do adult dramas in general. A strong showing during awards season, which Tarantino also has classically had, and therefore, a healthy life in the ancillary market. For those of you who don't know, that means streaming, hotels, airplanes, etc. But we'll see how much of that materializes, because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood received one of Quentin Tarantino's lowest cinema scores, and that verified audience score on Rotten Tomatoes ain't looking so good. And many in the media, including myself, have a serious problem with how the film treats women, which could hurt its awards chances. We'll get a better idea of the movie's trajectory, at least money-wise, after its second weekend. It's also interesting to note that despite how much he's helped the careers of several African-American actors, particularly Samuel L. Jackson, his diversity numbers are downright embarrassing on this film, with a ton of money clearly left on the table. And that might have to do with a number of black moviegoers having a very understandable problem. Many of you tweeted me about this over the weekend, in fact, of Tarantino's prolific use of the N-word in the past. I'm curious if you're a black moviegoer, film lover, did you see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? And if not, why not? Now, also, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's audience also skewed heavily male, more so than usual. It's usually these days, happily, usually about a 50-50 split. This was a little more male than usual. And again, considering the critique of his female characters here, Tarantino could be shrinking his audience even further going forward, or at least for this movie, despite strong female characters in the past. Tarantino, I think he has a lot of good to point to, and that was kind of my point in my review of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I'm wondering if black moviegoers feel the same way, that while on the surface he can point to strong positives, there are very strong negatives subversively, which I think are quite damaging. So anyway, as for Disney, they only make 4-quadrant behemoths, meaning anyone can and does go. Hollywood not only sits in the studio's shadow, but that shadow is getting larger and darker by the weekend. This weekend, Disney broke its own global box office record and became the first studio to surpass $5 billion overseas. And helping the Mouse House to achieve all of this was a third film this year joining the $1 billion club, Aladdin. Couldn't have happened to a nicer movie, with 2 more destined to join the $1 billion club in the next week or two. That will give Disney $5 billion pictures in 2019, which is already the most ever in a single year for a single studio. But Frozen 2 and Episode 9 are still to go, both considered billion-dollar slam dunks. Now, in the past, as in just a few weeks ago, I felt that maybe with such a long delay for Frozen 2 and Star Wars' bitterly divided audience these days, they might not be slam dunks. But I have to say, if The Lion King and Toy Story 4 can make $1 billion, films which I thought were both not as good as the other Disney $1 billion club movies this year, well, I don't just think it's Marvel that's grown a $1 billion audience, but Disney in general. And the other studios don't even come close. Only Sony is in the pack, but again, that's thanks to a serious assist from Disney, who's even building a Spider-Man ride as one of the crown jewels of their California Adventure Marvel Park opening soon. Can you believe that? A whole Spider-Man ride? It's also, I think, a serious shot at the one at Universal in Orlando, but that's for a totally different studio, and it will be in a Disney theme park. That, to me, is amazing. I mean, that's even a step too far, even for me. I'd be like, we don't distribute that movie. Pick another superhero. We have so many these days. Anyway, we'll see if Dwayne Johnson can keep Fast and Furious a $1 billion franchise. That's some serious. That's a very high bar, Dwayne Johnson, and I'll be curious to see if he can. There's been a lot of talk about him wrestling the franchise away from Vin Diesel, but so far Vin Diesel has delivered $1 billion pictures consistently. Well, we'll see about Fast and Furious 9, although the cast is shaping up impressively. But Dwayne Johnson has to be able to deliver the same if he's going to try and take control of it. And also if Dwayne Johnson can score again with Jumanji 2. Plus, just how big horror is for Warner Brothers this fall. Although Annabelle Comes Home is not boding well for that division. One of their few missteps in a while. But if those movies don't do as well, it won't just be a Disney summer, but a Disney year, if not a Disney industry. Only Netflix seems to be serious competition to Disney, and of course, as we all know, Disney is working to blow them out of the water as well. As for the overall top 10 this weekend, another win for non-franchise filmmaking as The Farewell, again on a much smaller scale, but still, it popped into the top 10 finally, boding well for its own awards chances. Awkwafina, of course, making the jump to franchise fare over at Disney. Very much in Camp Disney. And I'm a big fan of Awkwafina, so I'm very happy for her. I actually think some of the older actors are better awards contenders for that film, but I'll be curious to see how it does. And again, if that filmmaker can, what she'll spend this capital on. And don't forget, speaking of franchise filmmaking, this Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is the Beyond the Trailer Avengers Endgame watch-along party, followed by a Q&A. It's a 3-hour movie. It'll be going late, so I had to move it to Friday because of the Hobbs Shaw press screening this week, tomorrow, even though it comes out tomorrow. But this way, some of you can join globally and stay up a little later because, again, it's Friday. Now, anyone can watch along with their own digital copy of the film, but only members may comment during the watch-along party and in the Q&A. If you'd like to become a member, you can join a month at a time, see how you like it. You'll certainly be able to participate in this watch-along, actively participate in it. And you'll have access to the live streams that are 4 times every week. Today at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you'd like to join again, there's a link down below in the video description. So that's this week's Movie Math. Thanks for going over the box office with me. Be sure to share your thoughts down below. Hit that subscribe button. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.